here's my thoughts on Urza. Who I just kind of... Alright. If you like... Hey, Squirrel Loot! So Urza, if you realize that, like, he was a complete asshole, right? Like, if you realize, like, okay, this guy is an asshole, he used all of his friends, he never felt remorse or guilt about anything that he did, he just used people like a piece of toilet paper for wiping his ass, except for they were human beings, right? People who thought they were Urza's friends. He just, like, uses them, throws them away. If you know all of this about Urza, and know that, like, he committed, you know, genocide, if you knew all of this about Urza, that he was responsible for millions and millions of deaths, and used everybody around him, and just did not give a shit, and was responsible for all of his problems, like, he's the one who freed the Phyrexians in the first place, if you know all of this about Urza, and you think, yeah, he sucks, but I like him because he sucks so much, that's one thing. That's fine. Like, if somebody wants to go into that position and be like, this guy is, like, a total sociopath, and, like, just a complete jerk, but, like, he's a very interesting character in that way, that I'm okay with that. My problem, he does have a hot tub, and, like, I forget who hangs out with him in his hot tub, too. Who else is in that hot tub? I actually don't know. Who else is that in there? Oh, Glissa. Glissa's in there. Hi, Glissa. Anyways, so if you know all this about Urza, and you still, you know, don't hate, like, you still, like, think his character is interesting, that's fine. My problem is just that, like, people see Urza in two very, very different ways. There are the people who read the books, where, like, if you read the books, you learned that Urza was, like, the world's biggest asshole, and he used people in this way, and he was responsible for all the problems that he created, that he himself had to fix, and only ended up making worse. Like, if you read the books, you knew this, and, like, you can't help but read the books and think, I hate this guy. This guy is, like, the worst. You would never be friends with this guy, ever. But then there are the people who just saw Urza through the cards, right? And for people who just saw him through the cards, like, you can't help but look at some of them and think, oh, wow, he had such amazing foresight here. Wow, Urza, he knew that these people would betray him, right? Like, if you just look at the cards, you think to yourself, wow, Urza is so smart. He's such a brilliant guy, and he did everything he had to. But, like, if you read the stories, you know that, like, he knew these people would betray him. He set them up so he could get them murdered, right? Like, but you only get that if you read the story at the time. So, like, you have half the world who thinks that Urza was a guy who was placed into an impossible position and was a genius and did whatever it takes to beat the Phyrexians, right? That's what so many people see Urza as, but that's not who the character was. I can't help but feel like you should go back and listen to this, because I've been ranting for like 10 minutes. Shavam. Where was I? So, yes. So yeah, all of these people who just, like, saw him through the cards think, like, this is a guy who did whatever it takes. He had to stop the Phyrexians to save the world. He had to make some really tough choices, right? And he's a hero. That is what makes me crazy about Urza. It makes me so crazy. And, like, he's not even a hero. Yes, as Lorelei says, he gets to the end where he has a chance, and he agrees. He's like, oh, you know what? Maybe this Phyrexia thing is, like, not too bad. Like, it's not too bad. You know what, Yawgmoth? Maybe you're right. You know? Churchill. It would be like Churchill, you know, deciding, like, 4 years into World War II, he goes and meets Hitler, and he's like, you know what, Mr. Hitler? You got some very valid points, you know? You're right. You were right this whole time. Like, that's kind of like what Urza is like. Like, he's not, except for he's, like, you know, much worse. uh, did I say Churchill? Churchill Chamberlain? I always forget which one it is. But anyways, yeah, he was also a monster. So anyways, and like, I don't know how this ended up happening, like how the story ended up where it was like so different on paper versus like on the cards. But like, here's my thought, right? You're in Wizards Creative, right? You're back, you know, you're writing this saga, and you've got this character Urza, and you're just sitting in your cubicle one day, and you think to yourself, holy shit, we've really fucked this up. The hero of our story is a genocidal sociopath. We have made the hero of our story a genocidal sociopath. Wow. How can we dig ourselves out of this hole? Like, we can't just, like, disappear the character, because he's been the focus of the story for so long. So, and we can't, like, just change him, because, like, people would be screaming and that would be weird. So, like, I can't help but feel like they're like, okay, how can we dig ourselves out of this mess? I know, we'll have the real Urza be in the books, but on the cards we'll just kind of hint at what a monster he was. Like, that's my thought as to what happened. I actually have no idea if that's how it actually went down all the way back in the 90s, but like, Urza is a really bad person. He's a giant butthead, and if you have left this rant thinking that Urza was not the world's biggest butthead, then you are misinformed. So yeah, that's my rant on Urza. Or like, did I leave anything out? Did I leave, like, Urza was, he made the meanest and cruelest possible decisions at all times. Baron left his daughter Hannah, well, how did that go? Did he leave Hannah with her? No, I think Hannah ran off with Urza to join the crew. And he, you know, and like, Urza didn't give a shit. Hannah died, he didn't, like, give a shit, right? Like, he didn't care about anybody. He only cared about himself and his stupid, like, vindictive craziness about Phyrexia. Which, by the way, he hated Phyrexia, right? He hated Phyrexia because they perverted his brother. They, like, took his brother and they turned him into this thing, right? They played with his mind. So Phyrexia is very bad. Like, I'm not going to say that Phyrexia was good, right? He hates Phyrexia because they killed his brother. But guess what? Urza hated his brother. He hated his brother. He hated his brother. And he was a dick to his wife. You know? He, like, won this challenge to get a chance to marry her. And Kayla bin Krug was awesome. She's a great character. And Urza pretended more or less that she didn't even exist. You know? He just stayed in his study and was just an asshole to everybody. Like, he's just a bad person. He was even mean to his wife. How can you like this guy? How can you think that Urza is a good character? So yeah. Yeah. He's responsible. Urza is basically responsible for all of the Phyrexia problem. And also, he made Karn. And Karn is unrealistic. He's like this stupid pacifist robot, and all he does is vindicate your lands on turn 3, and has 3 loyalty left. How is that fair? That's just not a fair Magic card. Thanks, Urza, for making Karn a total pacifist jerk robot. So yeah. Anyway, he pretended his wife didn't exist, basically. He spent all this time working on a contraption to win the chance to marry her. And he gets to marry her, and she's like this beautiful woman, and she has like a great personality, and it's like super cool. It's not perfect. No, Shivam, you gotta stop. You gotta stop. You're embarrassing yourself by talking about Karn that way. Anyways, his wife is awesome. Kayla is a great character. I would be happy to be married to Kayla bin Krug. Also, she has like a great amulet, right? So Kayla is awesome. And he just like ignores her, and she like gets like super upset and depressed because she's like, why is my husband not love me, right? And he doesn't even notice. He's just a jerk. Modern Tron is everything that is wrong. Like, you can draw a direct line from Urza to Modern Tron. You have a character that made everybody unhappy, all the way up to a deck that makes everybody happy, except for the misinformed. So, anyways, yes, he did. Yes, he's responsible for murdering. Well, he's responsible for destroying Sarah's realm and most of Dominaria. I don't even know what else he screwed up. How many other planes he screwed up too. But yeah, he caused the Ice Age, which who knows how many people that killed. He's just a jerk. Urza is just a jerk. And he never felt bad. Like, he never ever felt remorse. Like, he felt guilty. He felt guilty. Like, oh geez, I feel bad. I just murdered millions of people. Wow. Boy, that's a real bummer. Shucks. That's basically Urza. Urza is like a guy who would drop an atomic bomb on New York City and not even feel bad about it because, like, there's a guy he really dislikes in New York City. Yeah, he was a total maniac. And yeah, like his guilt is basically the extent is like, yeah, I guess I did murder a few people. Derp de derp de derp. Where it's like, that's not normal. You don't murder millions of people and sleep at night. You're supposed to not sleep at night. Anyways, so yeah, that's all I have to say about Urza. He sucks. Jaya Ballard is awesome. She was a thief. She snuck into hoity-toity wizards' towers. These wizards are like, man, all these other wizards are going to want my cool little artifacts, so I'm going to put up all these wards and stuff to stop wizards from getting into my tower. And Jaya's like, alright, I'll just climb the stairs. She climbs the stairs and she steals from wizards. She's awesome. And then when she's done, she goes and has a couple pints at the pub. That's Jaya Ballard. How can you not like a character like Jaya Ballard? You know, she's great. Urza is terrible in every way. And I don't regret for a single moment spending all that political capital talking about what a, what a shithead that Urza was. Because really, like, this is one of the biggest failures, I think, in Magic Creative's, like, history, right? We came out of this thinking that people came out of this story thinking that this guy who committed genocide was a hero. There's very, like, you can't fail telling a story much more than that, right? Unless you're specifically trying to, that was your specific intention. Like, your specific intention was, like, for people to empathize with a cold-hearted murderer. Like, sometimes you write that, but, like, I don't think that was their intention. I just think that they failed, and people left that whole saga thinking that Urza was a hero, which he was not a hero. At best, he barely kind of cleaned up the mess that he himself caused. So, like, I'm just so glad that Urza lost. And I just am so angry that people still think he is a hero to this day. I think, you know, if I could go back in time and change how the stories went, I would definitely have, like, continued the story from where Urza joins Yawgmoth and he stays a villain. Urza should have stayed a villain. If he had stayed a villain and joined up with Yawgmoth, at least then people would be informed that he was in fact a villain, which he was. And not, like, still thinking to this day that, you know, this brothers' war is this cool old time in Magic. These two brothers were warring, and they were warring because, like, Urza was jealous of his brother. His brother made friends. That's why, like, the Power Stone got broken, and the Phyrexians basically kind of were able to, like, get onto Dominaria, is, like, Urza and his brother Mishra were fighting, and Urza was just jealous. He was jealous that Mishra made friends, you know? And I get it, like, you know, I understand what it's like to be in, like, high school and see all the jocks, right? You see all the jocks with their friends. I'll talk about Hana some other day. But like, I was there in school. I was not popular in high school, and I saw all these jocks who made like easy friends with people, like jocks and theater people, people who like were easy with people, and they just made friends naturally. Like, yes, I get it. It's normal to be jealous of that, and like a lot of people. Yeah. They were not 60, were they? They weren't 60 when they shattered the Power Stone. But yeah, so like Urza was basically just jealous of Mishra making friends. Like that's where this whole stupid thing started. And like I can understand how so many Magic players back then could imprint themselves onto Urza because, you know, you also have lots of Magic players are in that same boat, right? I was a socially awkward Magic player in high school. I would dare say the majority of Magic players were socially awkward in high school, you know? So I get how you can empathize with Urza being unpopular and having trouble making friends. But you shouldn't go from, like, seeing some characteristics of yourself in, like, the beginning of this character and still think that they're a hero at the end because you can, like, relate to them in this small way. Urza was a monster. He was a complete monster, and people should see him as the monster that he is. So yeah. Anyways, yes, that's basically it. And like, if he had just like sat down with his brother and just done like some therapy sessions maybe, or they had just even just talked. If Urza had just been willing to like sit down and listen to Mishra, the Phyrexians would probably still be trapped on Phyrexia. And we might not even know about the plane. They would just be sitting there, playing around with their oil, and being happy, little machines. And instead, we've lost the lives of billions of people because of it. So, that's my Urza rant. I appreciate that 29 people were able to stick around for... That's like a 15-minute rant about Urza. So sticking around for 15 minutes to listen to me rant is pretty heroic. And for that, my friends, I really thank you. That was lovely of you to do so. But yes, anytime folks would want to listen to me rant more about Urza, I'm happy to do so. You can also like read the books about Urza. Like I forget which one it is. The book that like walks through the Brothers' War and like their childhood and everything. Go ahead and read it. I found it to be like very hard to read, just because Urza as an adult, Urza is such such an unrelatable character, just like such a horrible character. I just like couldn't relate to him. I'm like, just grow up, dude. Just grow up. Yeah, freeing the Phyrexians was a mistake, so, okay. I guess I'll fill in a little backstory on my rant here. I guess it's not as quite as over as I thought. So, Urza and Mishra, they were excavating artifacts in the desert with a bunch of nomads, some group, right? They were excavating artifacts from the desert, and they're mostly finding, like, power stones. They're finding power stones, which they could use to power their ornithopters, which was super cool, right? And one day they decide to go. So Urza and Mishra start to have falling out, right? Urza starts to get jealous of Mishra and how he's always hanging out with the nomads and being popular and happy. And he's like miserable. So, anyways, they go out with, I think, their mentor. What is the name of their mentor, Lorelei? He got killed. Tocasia. Yes. Just got there just in time. Tocasia. So, Urza, Mishra, and Tocasia are out flying because, like, they have looked at a bunch of artifacts and they've found that, like, this old, uh, uh, um, these old artifacts were pointing to a cave. The Cave of Koilos. You've all seen it on the Black-White Pain Land, the Cave of Koilos, which would probably be legendary if we're made now, but is not. So anyways, they see all these little Thran, Lorelei. So they see all these Thran artifacts, and they point towards the Cave of Koilos. And so they fly their ornithopters way out there, and they get to the Cave of Koilos with some, madcap adventures. And they go in there, and it's unlike anything they'd ever seen. It's like super advanced Thran technology. It's way over their heads, right? And they get to a chamber, and they see this power stone. And I forget who was arguing for what, but basically the gist of it is that instead of deciding that they should just leave this, they see this massive power stone that powers some sort of device, some sort of gate, right? Which we know is like the gate to Phyrexia. And it's powering this gate. It's keeping the gate to Phyrexia closed, basically. It's keeping Phyrexia imprisoned on Phyrexia. And they don't know this, right? And so what they should do, because they don't know what they're doing, is leave shit alone until they know what they're doing. But of course, because they're assholes to each other, they start arguing about it, right? They start arguing about this power stone. And so Urza and Mishra, they grab at it, right? And they start fighting over it. And the power stone fractures. It fractures into the might stone and the weak stone. And Urza ends up with the might stone and makes things stronger and more powerful. And Mishra ends up with the weak stone, which makes things weaker and like saps their strength. But they split this massive, super powerful power stone into these two smaller ones. And that is what opens up the gate to Phyrexia. If they had just left it alone and not been fighting and arguing, they might have been able to make the rational decision of, hey, we should leave all this insane Thran shit that we don't understand. We should just, maybe just leave it alone until we know what we're doing, until we can read some of this writing and some of this text and figure out what is happening here. But they didn't. They were fighting and being assholes to each other. And splitting that power stone is what has led to so many events that, followed in Magic and continue to happen to this day, all the way down the line to, New Phyrexia and whatnot. So yeah. That is the kind of the origin story of Mishra and Urza. I am a Vorthos, but not nearly to the same degree. It was indeed a very shiny. It was glowing, I believe. I am not a Vorthos or a lore expert in the same way that Lorelei is, so I might have gotten some things wrong. So for that, I apologize, but this is just kind of a general summary. If you want to, if you want a really awesome summary that's mostly still correct, I will paste it in the chat here. It tells the story of the Brothers' War from the perspective of Caleb and Krug. And it's translated by Tayseer. So I'll post it here in the chat. And this is a nice short summary. You don't have to read the whole novel. And this is very good. So this is pre-revisionist, so some of it is not correct anymore. But this is a really good summary of the Brothers' War from a game called BattleMage. I'm actually getting BattleMage.